So now we get to the part in the Bible where God threatens to kill Moses because Moses' son is not circumcised. Now, I think this is great because this is God saying that you have to do in your home what I'm asking you to do for the public. Right? So, I mean, there would be such inconsistency and hypocrisy if Moses was the one to tell Israel that they, to reinforce what was already in place, the circumcision, and yet not have his own son circumcised. And so I think we can learn a lot from this. Number one, that God might kill your influence. That if you are a hypocrite, if you're inconsistent, then God should choose somebody else, and he will kill your influence, just like he would have chosen somebody else to lead Israel out of Egypt. He would choose someone else to do whatever he's called you to do. Now, of course, we're not called to do the law. We're not under the Mosaic law. We're under grace. And so the second point would be, just as Moses should have made sure his son was circumcised, you've got to make sure there's grace and truth in your house, which would lead to circumcision of the heart. Circumcision is a picture, a physical picture of a spiritual truth that people's hearts are covered. It's so funny that one of the greatest pictures of salvation involves the male genitalia, but that's really the way it is, that the most sensitive part of a man's genitalia naturally is covered by skin. And so when you and I are born, spiritually our hearts are circumcised. They are covered, and they need to be, I don't know if I just said they're circumcised, but they are uncircumcised, right? Our hearts are covered. And we need to expose that sensitive part of ourself, and Christ does that by dying for us, and so that makes us sensitive to him. The cross does a circumcision of the heart. The other notable thing is that Moses did not do it; his wife did. And so, man, I think women are amazing. I know God has called men to be the heads of the household and to be leaders in the church. But I think it's because we have the natural tendency not to. That women seem to just be more sensitive to what is wrong in the world. Men, I think, can be typically more passive. Of course, this is a generalization. There are women who don't follow, who don't follow this trend, and men who do not follow this trend. But I think for the most part, men do have a greater ability to be more passive. And so I think it's a gift to women that God has called men to be the leaders of the household and leaders of the church. But we have to admit that so many women, they just do a great job of trying to right what is wrong in the world. And so man, it was a woman who kept Moses from being killed, right? She is the one that actually circumcised her son. And, kind of a correlation, it was a woman who called Jesus into ministry. God used Jesus's mom to encourage him, push him, ask him to do the first miracle that he did in his ministry, which was to turn water into wine. And then she says, you are a bridegroom of blood to me. And so, man, just an emphasis on how hard it was in the Old Testament, that the Old Testament was very difficult. They were called, the people who were living for God in the Jewish nation, they were called to show us spiritual truths in the physical realm. So physical circumcision was to represent spiritual circumcision of the heart. And then, of course, you've got physical wars that would be pictures of spiritual wars that we go through. And so, it was rough, right? We should be so thankful that we are in the time of the church, that we are not under the Mosaic law, the law came through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus. So just be thankful that we do not have a bridegroom of blood, right? Jesus is our bridegroom, just as Moses was pretty much the leader in the Old Testament as far as God brought the law through him, which was supposed to prepare us for a Savior. Jesus is our bridegroom, and he took the blood for us, right? He suffered physically for us so that we don't have to, and he suffered spiritually for us. He was cut off from his Father so we don't have to. But we get to enjoy spiritual battle, spiritual circumcision, which I would definitely choose that battle over physical. So we don't have to cut our children. We get to love our children and give them grace and truth to try to help their little hearts be circumcised. We want them to be sensitive to God. We want to uncover what they were born with. They were born in sin, and we want that to be uncovered, and we want their little hearts to be sensitive to God. So I encourage you, even if you're not married with children, your job before you minister to the world is to make sure the people closest to you get grace and truth from you, and your goal is to help people's hearts be circumcised.